Penguin Random House Audio presents The Slave Ship, A Human History by Marcus Rediker. Read for you by Cornell, Womack. To Wendy, Zeke, and Eva, with love and hope. Introduction. Lying in the bottom of the canoe, in 3 or 4 inches of dirty water, with a woven mat thrown over her travel-weary body, the woman could feel the rhythmic pull of the paddles by the bonny canoemen, but could not see where they were taking her. She had traveled 3 moons from the interior, much of it by canoe, down the rivers and through the swamps. Several times along the way, she had been sold. In the canoe house barracoon, where she and dozens of others had been held for several days, she learned that this leg of the journey was nearing its end. Now she wiggled upward against the wet torso of another prostrate captive, then against the side of the canoe, so she could raise her head and peer above the bow. Ahead lay the Oba-Cuckoo, the dreaded ship, made to cross the big water. She had heard about it in the most heated threats made in the village, where to be sold to the white men and taken aboard the Oba-Cuckoo was the worst punishment imaginable. Again and again the canoe pitched up and down on the foamy surf, and each time the nose dipped, she could glimpse the ship like an oddly shaped island on the horizon. As they came closer, it seemed more like a huge wooden box with 3 tall spikes ascending. The wind picked up, and she caught a peculiar but not unfamiliar odor of sweat, the pungency of fear, with a sour trail of sickness. A shudder rippled through her body. To the left of the canoe she saw a sandbar and made a decision. The paddles plashed gently in the water, 2, 3, 4 times, and she jumped over the side, swimming furiously to escape her captors. She heard splashes as a couple of the canoemen jumped in after her. No sooner had they hit the water than she heard a new commotion, looked over her shoulder, and saw them pulling themselves back into the canoe. As she waded onto the edge of the sandbar, she saw a large, stocky gray shark, about 8 feet long, with a blunt, rounded snout and small eyes, gliding alongside the canoe as it came directly at her. Cursing, the men clubbed the shark with their paddles, beached the watercraft, jumped out, and waded, then loped after her. She had nowhere to run on the sandbar, and the shark made it impossible to return to the water. She fought to no avail. The men lashed rough vine around her wrists and legs and threw her back into the bottom of the canoe. They resumed paddling, and soon began to sing. After a while she could hear, at first faintly, then, with increasing clarity, other sounds. The waves slapping the hull of the big ship, its timbers creaking. Then came muffled screaming in a strange language. The ship grew larger and more terrifying with every vigorous stroke of the paddles. The smells grew stronger and the sounds louder. Crying and wailing from one quarter and low, plaintive singing from another. The anarchic noise of children, given an underbeat, by hands drumming on wood. The odd comprehensible word or two wafting through. Someone asking for mene, water. Another laying a curse, appealing to Mayabeka spirits. As the canoemen maneuvered their vessel up alongside, she saw dark faces framed by small holes in the side of the ship above the waterline, staring intently. Above her, dozens of black women and children and a few red-faced men peered over the rail. They had seen the attempted escape on the sandbar. The men had cutlasses and barked orders in harsh, raspy voices. She had arrived at the slave ship. The canoemen untied the lashing and pushed the woman toward a rope ladder, which she ascended with 15 others from her canoe, everyone naked. Several of the men climbed up with them, as did the black trader in a gold-laced hat who had escorted them from the canoe house to the Oba-Kuku. Most of the people in her group, herself included, were amazed by what they saw. But a couple of the male captives seemed strangely at ease, even speaking to the white men in their own tongue. Here was a world unto itself, with tall, shaved, limbless trees, strange instruments, and a high-reaching system of ropes. Pigs, goats, and fowl milled around the main deck. One of the white men had a local parrot, another a monkey. The Oba-Kuku was so big, it even had its own yuba-wanta, small boat, on board. Another white man, filthy in his person, leered at her, made a lewd gesture, and tried to grope her. She lunged at the man, digging her fingernails into his face, bringing blood in several places before he disentangled himself from her and lashed her sharply 3 times with a small whip he was carrying. The black trader intervened and hustled her away. As she recovered her composure, she surveyed the faces of the other prisoners on the main deck. All of them were young, some of them children. In her village, she was considered middling in age, but here she was one of the oldest. She had been purchased only because the clever black trader had sold a large group in a lot, leaving the captain no choice but to take what he was offered, all or none. On the ship, she would be an elder. Many of the people on deck seemed to speak her language, Igbo, although many of them differently from herself. She recognized a couple of other groups of people from her home region, the simple Appas and the darker, more robust Otams. Many of the captives, she would later learn, had been on board the ship for months. The first 2 had been named Adam and Eve by the sailors. 3 or 4 were sweeping the decks. Many were washing up. Sailors handed out small wooden bowls for the afternoon meal. The ship's cook served beef and bread to some, the more familiar yams with palm oil to others. The main deck bustled with noisy activity. A white man with black skin, a sailor, screamed, "Domona!" quiet against the din. 2 other white men seemed to be especially important to everything that happened. The big man on board was the captain, whose words caused the other white men to jump. He and the doctor busily checked the newcomers, head, eyes, teeth, limbs, and belly. They inspected a family, a husband, wife, and child, who had come aboard together from her canoe. The man was taken, with tears in his eyes, through the barricado door into the forward part of the ship. From beyond the barrier, she heard the cries of another man, getting pem-pem, a beating. She recognized his anguished intonation as Ibibio. Soon after she had been examined, a white man barked at her, "Get below, now, hurry," and pushed her toward a big square hole in the deck. A young woman standing nearby feared that she did not understand the order and whispered urgently, "Gemala, Geyan, Guango," as she descended the rungs of a ladder into the lower deck. A horrific stench assaulted her nostrils and suddenly made her dizzy, weak, queasy. She knew it as the smell of a wawo, death. It emanated from 2 sick women lying alone in a dark corner, unattended, near the atasa, or mess tub, as the white men called it. The women died the following day, their bodies thrown overboard. Almost instantaneously, the surrounding waters broke, swirled, and reddened. The shark that had followed her canoe had its meal at last. The story of this woman was one act in what the great African-American scholar-activist W.E.B. Du Bois called the most magnificent.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?